A lot of people who grew up in the 2000s still remember watching Ben 10 and following the adventures of young Ben Tennyson because the show had a simple but powerful hook. A regular kid finds alien tech called the Omnitrix, and it lets him transform into a bunch of different alien heroes whenever trouble shows up. The original animated series first aired in 2005, and it quickly became one of Cartoon Network's biggest hits. Since then, there have been reboots, sequel series, and movies, so the character has stayed around in different forms even though each version changed things a bit. But although the last animated run wrapped up in 2021 and things seemed quiet for a while, new developments suggest the franchise is gearing up for another major comeback. The original creative team behind Ben 10, Joe Casey, Joe Kelly, Duncan Rouleau, and Stephen T. Siegel are stepping back into the spotlight with a brand new comic series. Instead of continuing one of the older timelines directly, this new version is being described as an ultimate or absolute style reset. That means it reimagines Ben's world from the ground up while still keeping the core idea intact. The comic will revisit Ben's origin story, but it will adjust details so it feels more modern and structured like a mainstream superhero universe. Grandpa Max and Gwen are still part of the journey, and a bunch of the well-known aliens will still appear, although their presentation may change. Because of that approach, it's meant to work for longtime fans and brand new readers at the same time. Reboots usually make some fans nervous because people get attached to the version they grew up with. But in this case, the creators themselves are directly involved again, so it's not an outside team trying to reinterpret the character without context. Casey explained that they want to present Ben and his mythology in the way they always imagined, but couldn't fully execute before due to format limits. The plan is to treat Ben 10 like a top-tier superhero property that can stand next to major comic franchises. So although it's a reset, it's also positioned as a refined version rather than a replacement. What makes this moment more interesting is that the comic relaunch is not the only thing happening around the franchise. There are growing rumors and industry chatter about a new live-action Ben 10 project possibly moving forward again. A live-action adaptation has been stuck in development trouble for years, even though the character's popularity made it seem like an obvious choice. There were a few TV movies before, but a full theatrical-scale live-action film never materialized. The previously announced movie project lost its rights after sitting inactive for too long, which slowed everything down. But although that earlier attempt stalled, recent franchise activity suggests the brand is being repositioned, which often happens before a screen adaptation is revived. One of the biggest rumors getting attention is the idea that Tom Holland could be attached to a live-action Ben 10 project. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the speculation keeps coming up because he already has strong ties to youth-driven action franchises and proven superhero appeal. Casting someone like him would immediately signal that the studio wants a high-profile launch rather than a small experiment. Even though Holland is older than Ben's original cartoon age, adaptations often age characters up so the story can support more complex action and emotional arcs. Because of that, the age difference would not automatically be a problem if the script is built around a later phase of Ben's life. There's also talk that if a live-action version happens, it might not start with the standard origin story that everyone already knows. Instead, there's discussion about beginning with an Omniverse-era setup or a later-stage Ben who already understands the Omnitrix. That approach makes sense because modern audiences have already seen the origin told multiple times across different animated versions. Starting later avoids repetition, and it allows the story to jump straight into larger threats, deeper alien lore, and a more experienced hero. Although origin stories are useful, they can slow pacing if viewers already know the basics. An Omniverse-style starting point would also allow the film or series to introduce multiple timelines, alternate Bens, and expanded alien politics right away. That gives writers more flexibility because they are not locked into a single linear path. It also fits with how superhero storytelling works today, where multiverse and variant concepts are common. Because Ben 10 already experimented with alternate futures and parallel versions in animation, adapting that structure into live action would feel natural instead of forced. Meanwhile, on the publishing side, the new comic line is confirmed to be complete and ready to launch. The creative team has stated that the first batch of issues is finished, and more detailed announcements about covers, release timing, and plot direction are expected soon. The expectation is that this will be an ongoing series rather than a short mini-series, because the scale of the reboot suggests long-term planning. The comics are designed to run parallel to earlier continuities rather than erase them, so older shows still exist, but this becomes a new main track. The comic reboot will reportedly remix the most popular elements from past versions and refine them into a tighter continuity. That means classic villains like Vilgax, key alien forms, and the central family dynamic will stay important, but details may shift to improve pacing and thematic focus. The creators described this as taking the greatest hits and strongest ideas, then rebuilding the structure so it works smoothly for both legacy fans and new readers. Because superhero comics often succeed with this model, applying it to Ben 10 gives the property a more stable, long-term platform. This strategy closely matches what major comic publishers are doing with alternate universe lines. Marvel and DC both run separate continuities where familiar characters are reintroduced with bold changes because it lowers the barrier for entry. New readers don't need decades of background knowledge, but longtime followers still recognize the foundations. Calling this version Ultimate or Absolute Ben 10 places it clearly in that tradition. So although it's a reboot, it's also a consolidation of what worked best before. The timing also matters because a bunch of non-comic franchises are expanding into comics right now. Big names from film, television, and gaming are building parallel comic universes since it allows faster storytelling and lower production risk. If Ben 10's new comic run performs well, it strengthens the case for bigger adaptations, including live action. Publishers and studios often watch comic performance closely because it serves as a testing ground for tone, character redesigns, and story direction. All of this connects back to why the live-action rumors are gaining traction again. When a franchise refreshes its publishing line and reactivates its original creators, it usually means broader plans are being considered. A modern live-action Ben 10 project would likely lean into higher-end visual effects, serialized storytelling, and a more connected universe model. Because VFX technology and streaming budgets have improved a lot, alien transformations and large-scale battles are more achievable now than they were when the first movie attempt was announced. If the rumored approach of starting closer to Omniverse happens, the story could open with Ben already recognized as a seasoned hero, dealing with intergalactic consequences rather than neighborhood-level threats. That allows supporting characters, alternate Bens, and legacy villains to appear quickly. It also gives room for emotional stakes tied to responsibility and identity, instead of just discovery. Even though that skips the classic beginning, it respects the audience's familiarity and moves the narrative forward faster. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.